Good to have your company on a Sunday morning. The Big Decades with Mark Spate in between 10 and 2 every Sunday, where we showcase everything from the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. We have a very special guest on the line joining us today. We have Mark Kelly from Marillion. Hi Mark, how are you doing?
Hi Mark, I didn't realise you had a studio full.
Nice to have you on board, thanks for joining us.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
It's very, very cold out, but we're sat in a nice warm studio. Are you in England at the moment?
Yes, I am. I'm actually at home, and I was saying this morning how nice it's got compared to how it's been, so I'm not complaining at the moment.
It has. So, for all our listeners, Mark Kelly is a part of Marillion. Marillion have been around since, 1979, 1980. Let's have a quick preview of what is Marillion. And we've got Mark Kelly on the telephone. Mark, how unusual is it to hear your song on the radio?
I hope people don't think we've been doing nothing for the last 25 years. It's a shame you didn't play anything from the last 13 albums you've done since then.
We've got that to come, don't worry.
Okay. Well, it depends where you are in the world, to be honest, on that question. Some countries we do get played quite a bit, but yeah, the UK, the selection you just played was pretty much from the time when we used to be on the radio quite regularly in the 80s, and these days it's not so common. But you know, that's fine. I think it's just a sign of what happens, isn't it? You know, you have your 15 minutes, and then people move on, unless you're U2 or something, you know.
Yeah, you say that, you touch on there, a lot of people think you as an 80s band, and a lot of 80s bands are reforming, but Marillion, they never went away, did they? They've been going since, 1979, and they're still out today. They never split up, they're still going, aren't they? Yeah, well, I joined in 81, so a few years ago, and we've had the same lineup since Fish left in 88. We've had the same lineup since then when Steve joined, and we've made 17 studio albums. I think we released one last year. And numerous live albums, and we've been touring as, you know, every year pretty much. It seems a long way from your debut album, Script of Justice Tear, doesn't it? It's a long way back in the early 80s.
Yeah. At the time I thought, I'll give it a year, see how it goes, and then, you know, if it doesn't work out, I'll get a proper job. So how come you joined Marillion? What was your background before you joined Marillion? Oh, I was a student. I hadn't really sort of decided what I was going to do with my life, and playing in bands for fun, you know, like most people do. And Marillion were our support band actually in a pub, and they asked me to join. So I said, okay. Well, then, that's exactly what I did. I thought to myself, give it a year, and actually within a year we had a record contract with EMI, so that was that.
But you've actually appeared on, am I correct, on every one of Marillion's 17 studio albums?
Yes.
What a feat in itself. You're starting to feel as old as I am.
well, I'm 52 in a couple of days, so...
yes, on Tuesday. Happy birthday for Tuesday.
Thank you.
I read on your internet page that you're involved with the FAC still, the Featured Artist Coalition.
Yeah, that's right. That was something that set up a few years ago to try to... Well, I mean, to basically get the industry to be a bit more open and transparent about what's going on with the new digital stuff, you know, like Spotify and iTunes and downloads. A lot of artists aren't getting treated very fairly as everybody moves over to the online world. And we just felt that it was time that we got organised, really, as artists. In fact, if anybody is a featured artist out there. That basically means if it's your name or your band that appears on the cover, then you're a featured artist. They should just join. It's free to join. So, you know, the more of us there are, the more, you know, clout we'll have and the more people will listen to what we've got to say.
Do you think that digital downloads are spoiling music, for want of a better expression?
I don't think it's spoiling music. I just think that there's you know, without getting too boring, there's a lot of artists that have got contracts that were signed back in the day when people were selling physical products like records and CDs that don't really apply now, you know. So that's really one of the biggest issues. And you know, I think people like the convenience of being able to hear what they want on Spotify. You know, as a punter, I love Spotify, and I love, you know, the fact you can hear or see anything you want on YouTube. But it is making it hard because, you know, there's not as much money in it because people just don't want to pay for music anymore. They don't value it in the same way, which is a shame.
And you're a talented guy in your own right. I read on your profile this week you're a connoisseur of many instruments, one of them being, I hope I pronounced this right, an Arturia Minimoog. What is an Arturia Minimoog?
Well, the Minimoog was an old analog instrument with lots of knobs on it, which was invented back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the Arturia Minimoog is a software version of that. That's all it is. So, you know, a lot of instruments, you know, a lot of keyboard stuff these days has basically been turned into what they call virtual instruments. It's just software code that, you know, imitates the sound of the physical instrument, that, you know, as it used to be. Mm-hmm. So that's all that is, really. So, no, it's just another keyboard, effectively.
All right.
So, yeah, I was thinking, what the hell is he going to say?
I've never heard of an Arturia Minimoog before.
Oh, well, you'll have to get online and have a look. Yeah, it's a good software reproduction of an old machine, basically.
So when you aren't with Marillion in your own time, what are your interests?
Well, I've got 3 young children, 2 grandchildren. I'm keep quite busy with the family. And, you know, to be honest, with the Featured Artists Coalition, I'm also on the board of PPL, which is a music licensing company that basically licenses music for public performance. Mm-hmm. It's necessary stuff. Someone's got to do it. You know, what with Marillion, I mean, we do work pretty much full time, so, you know, it's not like we're sat around doing nothing. We're either preparing for a tour, doing a tour, writing an album, recording an album, you know, it's pretty much full time.
Where do you get the inspiration to write an album or a tune? Say, for example, off the top of my head, Kaylee, you got to number 2 in the chart. I think you co-wrote that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
where's the inspiration come from?
Well, usually what happens is one of us will come up with an idea, and in the case of Kaylee, Steve Rothery, the guitarist, came up with that riff that you hear on the opening few bars of it. And in fact, even the chorus was something that he'd come up with years before, and I said to him, well, what about that little tag that you wrote for this other song? Let's use that as a chorus, you know. So that's sort of how we work, where you know, little ideas one of us will have, and then we'll work together to work out the arrangements and, you know, matching up the music with the lyrics. Steve, our singer, will have lots of lyrical ideas that might be either finished or just a couple of lines. And when he hears us play a piece of music, he'll think, oh, that could go with that, or the mood of that music suits this idea, you know. And so a lot of it comes from jamming and working together, really. So we're quite slow. It's a bit like a process of trial and error. So it tends to take us months and months to come up with an album. So it was like 3 years between the last 2 albums. I hope it won't be 3 years until the next one. But having said that, it went down really well. We've had a great reaction to the most recent album, Sounds That Can't Be Made. Yeah,
the latest album, Songs That Can't Be Made, that's your latest album. It's a brilliant album. Let's have a quick listen to songs from that album.
One day I'll play you sounds that can't be made. Time that slows the rapid eye. We were invited to
enjoyed that album, Mark. We're joined by Mark Kelly from Marillion on the telephone here on the Big Decades. That's from their new album, Sounds That Can't Be Made. Where was that recorded, Mark?
I was about to say that was a very slick segue you did there. You've obviously done this before. It was recorded in our own studio, actually. We've got a studio in Buckinghamshire, which we've been working at for the last 20 years, really. It's really... It's one of those things, you get other artists come round, musicians locally, whatever, come to visit, and they just go, God, we'd kill for a place like this. Just to have your own place where you can work every day, it's a real godsend for us, because obviously it keeps the cost down. We don't have to pay huge studio bills. And, and the equipment these days is a lot cheaper. You can buy a really good, studio setup for a fraction of the price it used to be back in the 80s and 90s. So we tend to do all our recording in our own studio, apart from if we want to get away from, just to have a change of scenery. I mean, we did some of the recording for this album at Peter Gabriel's studio in Bath, Real World, which is an amazing place. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't afford to spend more than a few weeks there, to be honest.
So I've also been reading that you're doing the London Marathon this year. I
am, actually. Don't remind me. God, yeah, in 2 weekends' time, yeah.
On May the 6th, isn't it?
It's April 21st.
April the 21st, is it?
Yeah.
So when are you? How do you get the time to train with all your rehearsing at the moment to do something like this?
Well, it fits in quite well when we're touring, because to be honest, you've got lots of time during the day. Usually, you arrive at a place and the sound check's not till the afternoon, and it's great to be able to go out running, in a different town every day. It makes it, keeps it interesting. So I do enjoy that. Although we were in Montreal a couple of weekends ago, and I had to do a long run, and it was, snow on the ground. It was hideously cold, and I was really regretting it. But normally it's good fun. But I'm not going to do any more marathons after this, and I've promised the family, because my other half has been complaining that she's turned into a marathon widow. Because it does take up a lot of time. But if anybody wants to sponsor me for the NSPCC, they can find my well, actually, probably the easiest thing to do is go on to Virgin Money Giving. That's where my name is Mark Kelly, but spelt with 2 1s instead of the L's, all one word.
Yeah, you say that you're running for the charity NSPCC. There are links on our website for our listeners. If anybody would like to sponsor Mark, go to thebridgeradio.net/the Big Decades. You will see a link there, which, as Mark just told you about, will take you to his page. You're trying to reach £3,000, aren't you?
That's right, yeah, and I'm sort of almost halfway there. No, more than halfway there, actually. So, yeah, I think hopefully I should get close, if not to the target. It should be great. Thanks very much for that plug.
That's all right. So, probably one of the most asked questions of all time. Do you have a favourite Marillion track?
That's hard, really, because, it depends on what sort of mood I'm in. I mean, there's favourite tracks that I think are our best tracks, and then there's tracks that are really fun to play, whether it's live or, if I had to choose one, I'd either choose, I'll choose one of 3. Neverland from the Marvels album, because it's just, it's always goes down really well. It's it's a real firm favourite with the fans. The Great Escape I really like from our Brave album, and more recently, Gaza I think is probably the best track on the latest album, although it has had a bit of controversy because of the subject matter, which is obviously about Gaza, but it's not meant to be an anti-Jewish or Israeli song. It's more about, this sort of thing, what's going on there really should stop, and everybody should do what they can to make it stop.
Okay, we'll have a quick listen to Kaylee by Marillion, the song that you co-wrote, got to number 2 in the early 80s, and then we'll come back to have a quick word, okay?
Okay, cheers, Mark.
Back to the 80s, Marillion and Kaylee, 9 minutes to midday on the Big Decades with Mark Spate. On the telephone live, we've got Mark Kelly from Marillion. Mark, you've got this upcoming tour coming up at the moment, a long weekend at Civic Wolverhampton, the 12th to the 14th of April. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, we do these, every 2 years we do what we call Marillion Weekends, where we play 3 nights in a row, usually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we do 3 completely different shows, so we don't repeat anything across the 3 nights, which at our age is a bit of a feat, trying to remember all the songs. It's about 7 or 8 hours worth of music altogether. Yeah, we did one in Holland about a month ago, and then we did one in Montreal 2 weekends ago, and this is the UK one. So it's we get people travelling from all over the world to these. You know, so I know for a fact that people coming from as far away as Mexico to this one in Wolverhampton. Yeah. It's not as glamorous as Cancun, I imagine, but I think people are coming for the music, so it should be fun. Yeah.
Now, on the 12th of April at the Civic, you're going to attempt a Guinness World Record, aren't you? Tell us about that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did this a few years. Well, probably 10 years ago. We did something similar where we were the fastest production of a DVD from the performance to it going on sale in the shop. Which back then it was about 48 hours, I think, and we got in the Guinness Book of Records for it. And then somebody beat our record a few years ago, so we said, okay, we'll do it again. So this time it's going to be filming the Friday night, and it'll be on sale by Saturday morning.
That's quick.
That's the plan. So obviously the whole DVD production thing and everything is all going to go through the night. But these days I think it's feasible to do that. Obviously the whole vision and everything and sound has to be mixed as we go live. So it's probably going to be a fairly hairy experience. People involved.
Now, during that weekend, you touch on a few albums, don't you? You play the full versions, a full album rather. And
that's right. We usually have a theme, so an album theme for the Friday night, which is the album Radiation, and then actually this year we decided to do an album on the Saturday night as well, which is the Brave album, which we haven't played in its entirety for over 10 years. So it's been, obviously it's one of the ones that people really wanted to see, and like when we did it in Canada, we'd never played the entire album in North America until 2 weekends ago. It seems to be a bit of a thing that quite a lot of artists are doing these days. I mean, we started this like I said about 10 or 12 years ago, doing a sort of an album theme, but you see tours going out where bands go out and tour a particular album from their past. So I think it's a good way of revisiting the catalogue, without getting bogged down doing the same stuff, year after year.
Now, for our listeners, you can get tickets still for this Marillion weekend at the Civic in Wolverhampton. It's the 12th to the 14th of April. You can go to the Midland box office on 0870 320 7000 or follow the links on our website, thebridgeradio.net/Big Decades. There's links there. You can buy tickets for the Marillion weekend, which is the 12th to the 14th of April.
I should say, actually, Mark, that I know there's a few tickets left, but I think we've released some of them as just day tickets, as it were, so you can just go to one of the gigs rather than all three, because I know some people just can't afford to invest that amount of time.
Yes. Right then, finally, we've got some silly questions for you. About fellow band members. We ask all this to all our guests. We have 30 seconds to get 10 questions in, so see if we can get through them as quick as possible. They're just silly questions, so let's see if we can get through these. Mark from Marillion, here we go then. Question number 1. Who is the Joker in the band?
Who is the Joker in the band? Well, it's probably me. But if you don't know who the Joker is, it's probably you. Is that the answer?
Who has the worst fashion sense?
Yeah, probably me. No, well, I think that's Ian, because all he ever wears is a black T-shirt.
And when on tour, who's the last to get up in the mornings?
Well, that's Ian, definitely. Yeah, the mornings, I think you'd be lucky to see him before lunchtime.
This one's going to cause some divide and some argument. Music-wise, who's the most talented?
That's an interesting one. I'd say Pete, the bass player, he's certainly got the most ability to play instruments. You put any instrument in his hand and he'll get a tune out of it. And
who has the most followers on Twitter?
Oh, I think that's me. Half the band don't do Twitter, so I think it's only me and Pete that do it.
6th question, who's the last band member to get a round in?
Who's the last? Oh, to get a round in?
Yep.
Oh, I'd have to say Steve Rothery. I hope you're not listening.
Who's the biggest moaner?
Oh, well, that's Ian. In fact, his nickname's Mona Mosley. So there you go.
Mona Mosley. Who's the worst driver?
That's going to be between... Well, that's a difficult one. It's definitely not Ian or Steve Rothery. I think Pete, the bass player, our singer's pretty bad, but I think I'm probably the most dangerous.
Who sleeps the most?
I don't know. Not me.
Not you. And finally, one more question. Who's got the best ringtone on the Mel Bar?
I don't know. Everybody goes for those old-fashioned ringtones.
Yeah.
Sign of our age, the sort of oldfashioned.
I'm just trying to see what ringtone. Just trying to get out what ringtone you've got on your mobile.
Oh, my mobile's in the house. I'm not in the house, mine is just one of the standard Apple ones. I've got an iPhone, so there you go.
All right.
The boring that rock and roll piano one, thing. So there you go. Not that exciting.
Thanks for joining us, Mark. I hope the tour goes well. What's planned after the weekend?
Although I tell you what, on the ringtone, I did have that little section out of See Emily Play, the harpsichordy bit.
Yes.
And I was in a meeting, and Nick Mason, and my phone went off, and Nick Mason was there, and he went, "That's one of ours. I only paid for it." He spotted it instantly. I'm like, "Oh my god."
What's coming up after the weekend in Wolverhampton?
We are taking a bit of a break from Marillion for a few months. People are doing their own thing. And then we're back in the studio back in September. So, I can hear one of my kids coming to the door. I better go then. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Mark Kelly from Marillion, everyone.
Cheers.